and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
President Biden addressing the nation for the first time since he announced his departure from the 2024 presidential campaign. Biden calling on voters to unite, saying the defense of democracy is more important than any title. The speech also gave him the opportunity to shape his legacy as a one-term president.
She's a real liberal. She really is a real liberal. She's much worse than him.
In former President Donald Trump's first rally since Biden exited the race, Trump bashing Vice President Kamala Harris, the former president calling her radical and a threat to democracy. Today, President Biden will sit down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the prime minister addressed Congress yesterday, speaking about the Israel-Hamas war.
The demilitarization and de-radicalization of
Visit highlighting the divisions in America over the Israel-Hamas war as dozens of Democratic lawmakers boycotted the address. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters also gathered outside condemning the war in Gaza. Those are your headlines. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter. Another hot day taking shape across the Southwest, where temperatures are once again going to get into around the 1-teens across Las Vegas and Phoenix. And across the eastern half of the United States, temperatures not too bad, especially when you compare it to last week. We've been stuck in this unsettled weather pattern across the southeast with heavy showers, lightning, and even the potential for some severe thunderstorms on the way for parts of the Carolinas. I'll have more details on that and how much rainfall we can expect coming up in 10 minutes.
I'm Bree Driscoll. Today is Thursday, July 25th. Our top story, President Biden addressing the nation for the first time since he announced his departure from the 2024 presidential campaign. He used his address last night to explain what led to his decision. He also called on voters to unite, saying the defense of democracy is more important than any title. Biden did not directly address former President Donald Trump. However, the speech also gave him the opportunity to shape his legacy as a one-term president. Our national reporter, Evan Kozlov, has a recap from our Washington bureau.
I revere this office, but I love my country more.
President Joe Biden delivering one of his most consequential speeches of his presidency from behind the resolute desk. As his family looked on, Biden announced that it was time to pass the torch.
There is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. But there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices. And that time and place is now.
Biden spoke for just under 11 minutes, highlighting what he considers to be his biggest accomplishments, including landmark legislation on climate change, gun restrictions, and manufacturing, all an attempt to frame his legacy as he wraps up a half-century of public service. Biden's departure from the race setting up a presidential matchup between former President Donald Trump and his Vice President Kamala Harris, who Biden called experienced, tough, and capable. Biden framing this upcoming election as a referendum on democracy.
The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands.
Following the remarks, Vice President Harris wrote in a statement that, quote, President Joe Biden fights for the American people, and we are deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation. As writing on social media, crooked Joe Biden's Oval Office speech was barely understandable and so bad.
Now, President Biden still has 6 months left to go in his term. He says that he's going to keep pushing for the end of the Israel-Hamas war. And back here domestically, he says he's going to propose a number of big legislative goals, including Supreme Court reform. But this close to an election, he's going to face major challenges getting any bills passed. Reporting here in Washington, it's Evan Kozlov, Spectrum News.
Donald Trump returning to the campaign trail Wednesday for the first time since President Biden dropped his re-election bid. The former president criticized Vice President Kamala Harris for her work on immigration, among other issues. Spectrum's Taylor Popolars was there and joins us with more of Trump's messaging less than 4 months away from the November election.
Former President Trump unveiled dozens of new attacks on Vice President Harris before thousands of supporters here in North Carolina. Trump tried to paint Harris as more extreme.
She's worse than him because he's a fake liberal. You know, he wasn't that liberal. He was fake. She's a real liberal. She really is a real liberal. She's much worse than him.
Trump called Harris incompetent, radical, and a threat to democracy. He listed some of her votes as a senator and her policy pitches when she ran for president 4 years ago. The Trump campaign is having to adjust after spending months preparing to run against Biden. Trump falsely claimed Harris had only 1,000 people at her first campaign event in Wisconsin on Tuesday. She actually had over 3,000. And he misstated her duties overseeing U.S. relations with countries that play a direct role in migration. Trump supporters here for the rally told us they're confident he can beat Harris, and they remain supportive of his agenda.
He made a great president the first time. He's going to make a better one this time.
The way our economy is going, the borders are open. I mean, it's obvious what's going on in the country, but it doesn't seem like they're...
I love everything about him. I love his morals and just what he's about, what he wants to fight for.
Trump will campaign in Florida, Tennessee, and Minnesota in the coming days. His running mate, J.D. Vance, is set to visit the battleground states of Nevada and Arizona next week. Reporting in Charlotte, North Carolina, Taylor Populars, Spectrum News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing Congress in a 52-minute speech attempting to boost U.S. support for the ongoing war in Gaza. Netanyahu talked about the long-standing and close ties between the United States and Israel. However, his speech wasn't met with support from all. Many Democratic lawmakers refusing to attend, boycotting his speech. Pro-Palestinian protesters also gathered outside the chamber and Capitol. Netanyahu addressing the protesters, calling them useful idiots to Israel's rivals. He talked about how he wants the conflict to end with full Israeli control over Gaza, framing the conflict as one between good and evil.
We meet today. Our world is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
Since the attacks by Hamas, Israel's military has killed an estimated 40,000 people in Gaza. President Biden and Netanyahu are set to meet today to discuss issues caused by the Israel-Hamas war and seek a resolution. In a House hearing, FBI Director Christopher Wray providing new details on the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Wray testifying the shooter flew a drone near the site of Trump's rally for approximately 11 minutes, just 2 hours before the assassination attempt. And he revealed new details of the shooter's search history.
Of a laptop that the investigation ties to that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy?
Wray also saying at the time there are no known co-conspirators or accomplices, but as the investigation continues, many questions remain, including the motive of the shooter. Coming up on Spectrum News, we have all the political buzz surrounding Harris's first week campaigning at the top of her ticket.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cooked my favorite breakfast for me every morning. I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Carpenter with you on this Thursday morning. Drought conditions haven't gotten much better due to the lack of rainfall over the last several weeks or so across the southeast and over towards portions of western Texas, southern New Mexico, and we are going to see a gradual improvement in those drought conditions with the unsettled weather pattern that we've been in, especially across the southeast. Over the last 3 days or so, some impressive rainfall totals in a few spots, especially along the Gulf Coast. New Orleans checking in with the most rainfall out of these locations, a little over 3 inches down in southern Louisiana. Other places include Atlanta, a little over 1 inch over the last 3 days, and about ½ an inch in Tampa and Charlotte. Of course, locations outside of those two areas have picked up a little more than ½ an inch. It's just not expecting complete total washouts, just a gradual increase in those rainfall totals over the next couple of days. As for the severe weather risk throughout the day today, we're going to kind of focus in on the Carolinas. That's the one spot that's got a marginal risk for some severe thunderstorms, and into southeastern Virginia as well. Main concerns with any severe thunderstorms that develop will be dealing with the threat for flooding, especially with the stalled front still hanging out across the southeast. You'll notice from southern Virginia all the way down into eastern Texas, we've got a slight to moderate risk for excessive rainfall, which means flooding is definitely going to be a bit of a concern, especially along the Gulf Coast. You get those tropical downpours that can easily add up to a quick 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. This is helping out with the drought conditions, but we don't want to see all that rainfall falling at one time because it will lead to flooding concern. So as we get into the rest of the day today, 10 a.m., we're dealing with some of those downpours across Texas into the Carolinas, and you'll notice more downpours across eastern Texas into Louisiana. So we are going to see our fair share of downpours as we get going throughout the day today and even into our Friday as well. So we're going to remain unsettled, adding up to around ½ an inch to a little over 1 inch in a few spots. But out west, we're dealing with some excessive heat. I'll have more details on how hot it's going to get coming up in 10 minutes.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. Last night, President Biden addressing the nation for the first time since he announced his departure from the 2024 presidential campaign. Biden calling on voters to unite behind Harris, saying the defense of democracy is more important than any title. Yesterday, former President Donald Trump holding his first rally since Joe Biden exited the race and slamming Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump calling her radical and a threat to democracy. And President Biden is sitting down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today after the Prime Minister addressed Congress amid protests against the Israel-Hamas war yesterday. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. Buzz. Political anchor Errol Lewis joins me now. Errol, President Biden laying out his legacy and asking the country to unite in the defense of democracy. What struck you about Biden's address last night?
Well, you know, it was heartfelt. It was emotional, more so than I would have imagined. And he really talked about kind of living principles that he's talked about quite a lot. And so really kind of acknowledging that the first step toward unifying the country is to unify his party, and that he couldn't do it by remaining as the candidate. I mean, it was a really tough thing for him to do, and you could sort of visibly see that after spending 50 years in politics and rising all the way to the top, becoming the most powerful person in the world, it was pretty tough for Joe Biden to acknowledge that he needed to step aside.
And we saw that play out over the length of time that it took him to get to the campaign, releasing its first video this morning. Let's listen to a short section of that.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care.
And Errol, notable that the soundtrack is Beyonce's Freedom. But in watching this, what voters is she going after with this?
Well, it's a really broad spectrum. If you watch the entire ad, there's people of every conceivable background, different ages and so forth. But both in the words that she's speaking in the ad, as well as the images that she's showing, a special focus on women and on reproductive freedom is one of the main freedoms that she's talking about here. And that signals where the campaign is likely to go. Almost every strategist I've talked to so far believes that make the difference. Suburban women specifically in a handful of battleground states. And she's going right at them with this ad.
And Errol, Democrats very quickly stepping in line to endorse Harris after President Biden dropped out of the race. But one name notably absent, President Obama. Why no endorsement yet from him?
There are a couple of theories about that. One is that he's going to be the closer, that they're going to bring him out in some kind of highlighted way at the convention. The other is that, look, they've got to work things out. When anybody gives a valuable endorsement, it's usually a two-way street, and that you have to not just say, well, yes, I'll endorse you. It's also, I'll make 10 appearances for you, or I'll make 20 appearances, or I'll have a campaign plane, or you'll give me some staff, that kind of a thing. So it's possible.
Negotiations still underway. And Errol, what do you have on your show this week?
Well, of course, we're looking at all of the momentous events. If you think about it, just in the last couple of weeks, there was the assassination attempt. There was the Republican National Convention. There was Joe Biden stepping aside. And then, of course, that speech last night and the Harris campaign all underway. So we're going to try and catch up with all of it. And we're also going to take a look at an important issue that really doesn't necessarily relate directly to the campaign, but it's something that Americans ought to know more about, which is microplastics. There's a lot of plastic pollution all throughout the environment, in our diets, in the food chain. We're going to talk with some experts about what's going on there and why we need to be more aware about it.
All right, Errol Lewis, thank you very much. A wildfire raging just north of Sacramento has torched more than evacuations. In this time-lapse video here, you can see the blaze dubbed the Park Fire rapidly spreading through the landscape. Authorities saying the fire is only 3% contained, with the extreme heat from the inferno adding to the development of an enormous pyrocumulus cloud rising tens of thousands of feet into the sky. Forecasted high temperatures with low humidity and strong winds are expected to fan the flames today. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The Department of Justice finalizing a plea agreement with Boeing. The plane maker will plead guilty to a felony charge of defrauding the U.S. government and pay more than $240 million. Boeing also admitted to defrauding the Federal Aviation Administration when seeking permission for the 737 MAX plane to carry passengers. The agreement also states Boeing's board of directors must hold a meeting with victims' families and their legal representatives. Boeing will also have to invest at least $450 million into its compliance, quality, and safety programs. The plea deal is Coming up on Spectrum News, we have the story of one Floridian heading to Paris to represent the U.S. in a new Olympic event.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm a...
Why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Good Thursday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Mel Carpenter. We're still dealing with excessive heat out west, especially across Southern California and portions of Southern Nevada. Even Montana seeing some heat advisories and excessive heat warnings over the course of the day today. So if you live in those locations, definitely a good day to stay inside with the air conditioning or make sure you're drinking plenty extended periods of time outdoors. Temperatures today out west, close to the 1 teens across Las Vegas and Phoenix, 75 in Seattle, a little cooler across the Pacific Northwest, and you'll notice that heat is still building in across the Central Plains. Across the southeast, though, with that unsettled weather pattern that we talked about, still going to be a little cooler temperature-wise across those locations. Overnight lows also not too bad, especially up into the Great Lakes region where temperatures will be falling down into the low to middle 60s, 61 tonight for the Minneapolis region, 58 up in the Pacific Northwest across Seattle, and we have temperatures across the southeast staying in the low to middle 70s. But what's going to happen over the next couple of days, this cold front's going to work its way off the coast of the Northeast, and that's going to lead to some cooler temperatures taking shape, but more importantly, it's going to drop down those humidity values, and we're going to see that happen anytime we have dew points in the 70s. It's that air that you can wear. The humidity values will drop behind this cold front, though, thankfully, just in time for the weekend. Anytime we get dew points in the middle and upper 50s and late, going to feel fantastic. And this is going to set us up for a pretty nice weekend across the Great Lakes region and the Northeast as dew points continue to drop down to the 50s and maybe even the upper 40s for late July. Really hard to beat that for this time of year. So in a place like Chicago this weekend, a pretty nice weekend to be outdoors. Mid 80s. I'm sure the beaches will be packed with partly cloudy skies taking shape on Sunday. Unfortunately, this weather pattern isn't going to hold steady as we head into the end of the month into early August. It looks like a big weather pattern flip is on the way, and most of the continental U.S. is going to be dealing with above average temperatures as an upper level ridge builds in out west. So we're expecting temperatures to be about 5, maybe even 10 degrees above the average, with the exception, of course, of South Texas. That's going to have better odds for below normal temperatures. Quick check of the tropics. It is hurricane season. We still have about 3 or 4 more months to go. It runs until the end of November, and we're not expecting any tropical development for at least the next 7 days, and that's thanks in part to Saharan dust, which is taking shape across the main developed week or so, but that weather pattern is expected to flip, and the tropics will certainly get quite busy as we head into the first couple of days of August.
Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones' paternity lawsuit coming to an abrupt end after a settlement was reached earlier this week. Jones had countersued after a 2022 lawsuit alleged the plaintiff, 27-year-old Alexandra Davis, was the billionaire's daughter. The presiding judge saying all cases have been dropped by both parties permanently. Jones had been expected to testify in court before a deal was reached. The opening ceremony for the Paris Olympics is tomorrow, and one Florida native will represent the United States in windsurfing. Our Olivia Stacy caught up with Noah Lyons before he set off for France.
Noah Lyons' love for sailing began in his hometown.
I was 6 when I first started sailing. My brother did a sailing camp, and I just wanted to follow in his footsteps. And I came to the sailing center when I was 7 or 8.
He's spent countless hours at the Clearwater Sailing Center through the years and considers it his second home.
I would walk right through this entryway we are now when I was 7 years old and just be greeted with the view of the water, and I would get out sailing on anything I could right in between these 2 docks.
15 years later, he's living out his dream and will compete in the Paris Olympics.
It's such an honor to represent the U.S. in Clearwater and Florida, and also just to represent the Sailing Center. Like, it's a culmination of the hard work I've put in, and it's such an honor to to go on the big stage.
Lyons moved through a few different sailing classes before committing to an Olympic campaign in the IQ foil class. It's a new Olympic event, windsurfing with hydrofoils attached to the bottom of the board.
It's in this orientation, and the foil acts as an airplane wing. So once we get going fast enough, it lifts the entire set of gear out of the water.
It looks like flying over the water, and it requires incredible athleticism as sailors reach speeds of nearly 38 miles per hour.
My heart rate never goes below 180 during a race. We're burning upwards of 900 calories, 1,000 calories per hour.
After graduating from USF with a degree in microbiology in 2022, he put graduate school on hold to train full-time.
I mean, it would be super cool to come home with a medal, but I'm really just looking to soak it all in and have fun, you know? At the end of the day, it's just a regatta like any other, and with some added fun stuff in between, and I'm just looking to enjoy it.
Lyons says he's especially looking forward to seeing competitors from across the world unite.
This Olympics opening ceremonies are unique because we're all going to be in boats on the River Seine in front of the Eiffel Tower, and so I'm definitely going to be on that boat.
It will be his first trip to Paris, and it promises to be a memorable one. In Clearwater, Olivia Stacy, Spectrum Sports 360.
And we're going to sail right into our News in 90 right after the short break. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Serving your community, that's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's.
Good morning, I'm Josh Robin. This is a Decision 2024 special report here on Spectrum News. Vice President Kamala Harris is speaking at a teachers convention in Houston. This is not considered a campaign event, but the American Federation of Teachers is the first labor union to endorse her bid for president. She's about to speak. Let's listen in.
Oh my goodness, it's so good to be there. Please have a seat. Please have a seat. If you have a seat, please have a seat. Thank you. My goodness. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh, thank you all. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Can we hear it for Brittany, please? Thank you all. It's so wonderful to be back with everyone here. Thank you. That means so much more than I can say. Randy, thank you for your friendship, your long-standing friendship. As we all know, Randy is a force, and she has been an incredible friend and an advisor to the president and me. And I want to thank you on behalf of the president and me and our country for all that you are. And I want to begin by saying a few words about our President Joe Biden. You know, right? Yeah. So last night, our president addressed the nation, and he showed once again what true leadership looks like. He really did. His words were poignant. The importance of reminding people of history, teaching America's true history. He thinks and talks about his work and our country, understanding what it means in terms of what we do now and how that will impact the future. He thinks about our history in the context of the importance of the work we do now. And over the past 3.5 years, and over his entire career, Joe has led with grace and strength and bold vision and deep compassion. And as he said, that's right. And as he said, in the next 6 months, he will continue to fight for the American people. And I know we are all deeply, deeply grateful for his continued service to our nation. Thank you. Thank you. The members of AFT, I thank you for your service to our nation. From the public service workers and higher education faculty to the school bus drivers and the custodians to the school nurses and our teachers, you all do God's work educating our children, the whole ecosystem of who are AFT members. It is you who have taken on the most noble of work, which is to concern yourself with the well-being of the children of America. And I thank you for that. I thank you for that. And I thank you also for your support over the years and for being the first union to endorse me this week. Thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And as you may know, I am a proud product of public education. Many of you know that my first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, God rest her soul, taught me and educated me and encouraged me and inspired me. And years later, when I walked across the stage to receive my law school diploma, Mrs. Frances Wilson was in the audience. Yeah. And that's who you are. I know who you are. I know who you are. This work is personal. It is so critically important. And so it is because of Mrs. Wilson and so many teachers like her that I stand before you as Vice President of the United States of America. And that I am running to become President of the United States of America.
All right, we're going to turn away from the Vice President's speech there. Kamala Harris is at a convention for the American Federation of Teachers. This was billed as an official event, but she got a very warm reception, and she did talk about the fact that she is now running for president. The speech comes just days after she launched that bid for the White House, and the teachers union was the first union to endorse her candidacy. I'm now joined by national political reporter Cassie Simeon, who is following the Harris campaign for us on Spectrum News, and she enjoyed your long look at Harris's career that we've been running here on Spectrum News, her background. What part of that, as she begins this campaign for the nation's highest office, would you say she's most emphasizing?
Well, she's definitely leaning into the fact that she is a former prosecutor and that she is someone who can make the case against Donald Trump that perhaps other candidates like Joe Biden previously couldn't make, right? That he is a convicted felon. She is a prosecutor. And as she's been trying out during her few campaign rallies that we've seen since her bid launched earlier this week, she keeps saying she knows Donald Trump's type because he is similar to the people that she convicted when she was a prosecutor. She was both at the local level, she was state attorney general, she then became a U.S. senator. So she's definitely leaning into her background, trying to Trump to the public that she is someone that should be elected president over Donald Trump.
So she's facing a lot of attacks from Trump, increasingly, for being, as he puts it, so far on the left that she's a radical. Can you do a bit of fact-checking on whether she is considered on the far left of the spectrum?
Well, he called her crazy for her support of abortion rights. She's proudly said that if Congress were to pass a bill protecting abortion rights and she was elected president, she would sign it. He's also trying to pin the problems at the U.S.-Mexico border on Kamala Harris, saying that she was the border czar. We want to fact check that a little bit because that's not actually true. President Biden had tasked Harris with meeting with Central American governments and leadership and trying to get to the root of migration issues that cause people to flee their countries and resolve some of those issues. She's not a border policy. That falls more under the Department of Homeland Security, but it's definitely something that rallies his base, and we can likely hear some more of that in the coming days. But back in the 2020 election, there were a lot of concerns that Harris wasn't progressive enough in some of her stances from actual true progressives. So it's interesting to see Trump to try and paint her now in that light as his opponent.
So what's next on Harris's agenda for the rest of the week?
Yes, so she flies back to D.C. today. She has a meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. He's meeting with the president and then with the vice president today. Not sure yet what her schedule looks like tomorrow, but on Saturday she is flying to Massachusetts for a big fundraiser that is headlined by Yo-Yo Ma as well as James Taylor, some big names, of course. And we've seen some eye-popping numbers from the Harris campaign over the last several days. They're hoping they can keep that money train. Really kicks off this campaign in earnest. Remember, Josh, she only announced her bid for president on Sunday.
Yeah, it's startling. As you mentioned yesterday, it's well over $100 million that she's raised, and that doesn't include pledges. All right, Cassie Simeon, thanks so much for your insight as always. You and I will be quite busy over the next few months. Thank you at home for watching. I'm Josh Robin. More news right now here on Spectrum News.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. Maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah,